Real quick, before the video, I received another model from Goat Guns. This one is the Golden AK-47. It has all the features as the black AK, the removable magazine, the bolt sliding back, etc. This time I'll assemble it on camera so you can see just how easy it is. Funny story actually, when I was recording this, my dog got a hold of the instructions and chewed them up. But they're so easy to put together that it was no problem. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is one of the things I like about them. There's no need for glue, or paint, or decals and delicate plastic parts, which is a major turnoff, at least for me, when considering buying a model. I've got a few messages from some of you saying that you bought one of these models and appreciate that as well. If you haven't got one yet, go check out their website. They've got a lot of different models there, and all for a reasonable price. The website is goatguns.com. One extremely important part of modern warfare is reconnaissance and surveillance. While it might not be as sexy as fighter jets and missiles, reconnaissance is just as important, if not more, than every other aspect of war. You could have the most advanced weapon system in the world, but if you don't know where your enemy is, it is completely useless. One of the most common categories of surveillance aircraft is the Airborne Early Warning, or AEW. They are usually very easily identifiable, with a large round or flat radar on top of an otherwise normal-looking aircraft. These aircraft's objective is to detect, at long ranges, air and ground threats, and provide that information to friendly units like fighter aircraft. The ability to detect threats at long distances is key, not only so that it can alert friendly units in time to act, but also to stay out of range of surface-to-air missiles and enemy interceptor aircraft. They have the ability to simultaneously detect and track hundreds of targets and provide that information to other aircraft. Another important mission of the AEW aircraft is to provide command and control. This means not only providing information on the enemy, but also to help direct friendly aircraft to tankers to refuel, and safely direct and manage other aircraft in the air. With the advent of radar, one of the serious limiting factors has been the horizon. Because of the curve of the Earth, a ground-based radar can only detect objects so far away. Low-flying aircraft might not be detected until it's too late. The low-flying kamikaze attacks on US ships during World War II, for example, really highlighted the problem. This helped lead to the idea of putting radar on board aircraft. That way, due to their being at higher altitudes, it can detect threats at much longer distances. Although it is not technically an AEW aircraft, Britain's chain-home radar system has been credited with saving them during the Blitz when Nazi Germany was bombing them. The radar system gave the British an early warning to incoming bombers so that they were able to use their few remaining fighter aircraft much more effectively. Germany at the time was unaware of this radar system, and the fact that the British interceptor aircraft seemed to be attacking their bombers on every run led them to believe that they had much more aircraft than they actually possessed, and possibly contributed to Germany ending the Blitz. Most of the developments in airborne early warning aircraft weren't completed in time before the end of the war, but became extremely valuable during the Cold War. Both sides quickly developed more and more advanced systems. Within the US military, AEW aircraft have been used in every major combat since World War II. These aircraft were especially important during the early Cold War era when most fighter aircraft did not carry their own radars. Instead, they had to rely on land-based and AEW aircraft radars to give them targets, which they would then fly out to and identify visually. Today, there are numerous systems and types of airborne early warning aircraft: land-based, carrier-based, fixed-wing, helicopter, and more. One of the most famous systems is the American E-3 Sentry. You may have heard the term AWACS to describe any AEW aircraft, but technically this term only refers to the specific system on board the E-3. It has been operational for over 40 years, and has seen operational use in every major combat since. The E-2 Hawkeye is the American carrier-based AEW. The ability to operate relatively large AEW fixed-wing aircraft from aircraft carriers is a major advantage, especially when the aircraft carrier is forward deployed, not only offensively, but also in defending the carrier. It can detect and track any enemy bombers or anti-ship missiles that threaten the carrier group at up to several hundred kilometers away, giving the carrier and its escorts crucial time needed to react and defend itself. The E-2 Hawkeye replaced the E-1 in the 60s, the previous carrier-based AEW aircraft, and has been operational ever since, albeit with numerous upgrades over the years. The US uses a system known as Link 16. that is integrated into most of their military, from aircraft like the F-16 to naval ships like the Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. It's an incredible system that allows units spread out across many different squadron or even different branches to share data and what they see. This means that if one aircraft detects a threat, every other friendly aircraft can instantaneously get that information and react. Link 16 can share everything from images to text messages to audio, enabling them a full tactical picture of the battlefield. Russia has a similar, albeit not as advanced system to the US Link 16 that is called TKS-2. These systems are called tactical data links and are extremely important to modern warfare. Prior to their use, radar operators would have to call out targets to specific aircraft or squadrons to intercept, at which point the aircraft would have to fly out to the area and begin searching. With modern data links, like Link 16, they can now access precisely where the target is, and all in real time. Russia's main AEW is the A-50 mainstay. It plays a similar role to the American E-3. It's a large, land-based aircraft that became operational in the early 80s. It is planned to be replaced by the A-100 in the next few years. Russia does not operate any fixed-wing AEW aircraft off their aircraft carrier like the US, but instead use a helicopter-based system called the Ka-31. Using helicopters for airborne early warning has several drawbacks. It is much more limited in the payload, meaning it cannot carry a large, powerful radar, computing equipment, fuel to stay airborne, and crew to operate. They also typically cannot fly as high as fixed-wing aircraft, are much slower, and do not have the same range, all limiting their effectiveness and making them more vulnerable to enemy attack. Several other nations use helicopter AEW aircraft. For example, both India and China use that Russian-built Ka-31 on board their aircraft carriers, and the British use the Merlin, or AW101, on board the Queen Elizabeth. Several other nations have produced their own large, fixed-wing, airborne early warning aircraft as well. China has produced their own aircraft based on the A-50 called the KJ-2000, Brazil with the R-99, India with the DRDO, the Swedish Uri system, mounted on several different aircraft, among others. I think it's also worth noting that non-traditional aircraft can be used in an AEW role as well, albeit with some drawbacks. This is especially true with modern aircraft carrying much more powerful and advanced radars. But fighter and interceptor aircraft like the Russian and Soviet MiG-31 have been used in this role. They will fly along with other aircraft, each scanning the skies for targets, and then either direct other aircraft to intercept or intercept them themselves. And again, with advancements in radar technology, several other aircraft can perform similar roles as well. Aircraft such as the E-8 Stars and even drones such as the Global Hawk can perform many of these roles. In response to the growing proficiency of AEW aircraft, both superpowers built longer and longer range missiles to shoot them, along with other large aircraft, down. The US with the AIM-54 Phoenix, and the Soviet Union with the R-33. Shooting down airborne early warning aircraft can be extremely important, as it can in some cases blind the enemy, making it much more difficult to detect and defend against future attacks. A relatively few number of these aircraft are operational. The US, for example, only operates some 30 E-3 Century aircraft spread across the globe, and Russia only 10 to 20 A-50s, depending on how you define operational. This makes each one extremely valuable. This means defending these aircraft is of the utmost importance. They will often be escorted by fighter aircraft in combat to protect them, as they do not carry any weapons themselves. The airborne early warning aircraft is extremely important to modern warfare. Like I said earlier, just as much, and even more so in some cases, to other attack and fighter aircraft. After all, if you can't see your enemy, there is nothing you can do to defend yourself.